gang.
When you meet the real
Let's do it,
stars,
folks, man.
have only been trudged deeper and deeper to accommodate more cargo ships. Today, that is a bloodthirsty undercurrent that runs 47 feet deep. And every year she claims at least 2 lives by either falling or jumping. And it wasn't too long ago when River Street was just as dangerous as her namesake. Many of the restaurants and stores that surround us right now originally started out as cotton warehouses, taverns, or chandleries. And of course, the rowdy sailors on River Street made it a dangerous place to be, especially after dark. But very soon, we're going to see one of those old warehouses. It's going to be called the Old Harbor Inn, and I'm going to point it out as we get closer. This was originally home to the Tidewater Oil Company, filled to the brim with barrels upon barrels of precious oil. And you're going to see that building just to the right side of the trolley right here. All this oil was brought in by the local shipping companies, and business was very good. But just because business was booming does not mean there weren't a few troublemakers in the mix. And for the Old Harbor Inn, it was a man named Hank. He was possessed by a terrible temper that caused him to get into arguments with anybody and everybody, and that did not exclude his bosses. But everyone just thought he was all bark and no fight. Until one morning, when a particular argument had pushed him over the edge. That night he was still seething in anger, so he grabbed one of those oil lamps and stormed off into one of the extra storage rooms. And looking for anything to take his anger out on, he threw that lamp at one of the barrels, the lamp shattered, the oil ignited, and soon that entire warehouse was consumed with flames, as well as this entire east side of River Street. It was a terrible, tragic loss. And I am happy to tell you that no one lost their lives during that fire. I'm just kidding. That would have made for a very good ghost story, wouldn't it? No, there was only one death that resulted from that fire, and it was none other than Hank himself. We like to say he fired himself. And ever since the Old Harbor Inn opened its doors in 1987, just stated Route 406 reported that Hank is not going into the afterlife quietly. Many people wake up to the smell of smoke and burning oil, and as they rush to the door to make their escape, that handle is only red hot. And when they do finally manage to pry that door open, there's no signs of smoke or fire. We like to think it's just Hank still trying to smoke out his old bosses. Now, as we make our way up this hill, I want to turn your attention to the streets below us. Because having come underneath Savannah are subterranean tunnels that run all throughout this city. And one of the most famous ones runs directly underneath the Pirate's House. This was built in 1753, and it's one of the oldest buildings in Savannah. Originally, this was just a place for sailors to have a drink or two and tell their tales of glory. And it's coming right up towards the left side of the trolley. It is that gray building with the blue shutters. Now, whenever English or French privateers were in need of a few extra napkins, they would slip that bartender some extra cash, who would slip something extra inside an unsuspecting patron's drink. The next morning, that poor soul would wake up on a ship bound for China and a whole new career. This was called getting shanghaied. Now, has anyone here heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren? Okay, perfect. If not, just know that they are famous demonologists who investigated the Amityville horror case and inspired movies such as The Conjuring and Annabelle. And when they came to Savannah a few years ago, they were given special permission to investigate the forbidden second floor of the Pirate's House. And to aid them, they did hire a local medium here. But when that big night finally arrived, he was running a little bit late. So he called upon a friend and rushed him on over to the Pirate's House. He jumped out of the car and looked up to the second floor windows to see 3 figures staring down at him. So of course he starts to panic, thinking the war had started without him. So he rushes inside, but imagine his surprise when he finds them waiting downstairs patiently. So as it turns out, the manager of the Pirate's House was running even later than he was, had not yet arrived with those keys. while this did relieve that medium, this does beg the question, who was staring down at him? Was it you, TJ?
I was at home eating Cheetos.
I don't know if I believe that. Now, even though the second floor is very haunted, most of that paranormal activity is credited to the tunnel underneath it. A few years ago, one of the waiters decided to sneak down into that tunnel and explore it for himself. So as he was making his way through that cellar, his path had been blocked by a pile of rubble. And that's when he heard voices echoing behind him. So assuming his managers had come looking for him, he just presses himself against the stone wall and sees 5 ghostly figures walking past him, cackling as they carried an unconscious body between them. He then watched them disappear straight through that pile of rubble and decided he had seen enough. Went straight upstairs to turn in his 2 weeks' notice, which is a very understandable reaction here in Savannah. And speaking of a city so haunted by the dead, it is a little difficult for the vicious spirit to make a name for themselves. Some might turn to more violent methods of making their names known, but there is one who lays her bones in a more playful manner. And at the 1790 Inn, Miss Anna is a true celebrity. Her story is one that's been touched by myth more so than most, often taking wildly divergent paths. One version of her story says that she was brought to Savannah for an arranged marriage, and another says that she was a barmaid who fell in love with a sailor who was only out looking for a good time. But no matter which version you choose to believe, it all ends the same, with Miss Anna throwing herself out the window of room 204. But don't worry, over the years she has come to terms with her death and developed a very unique sense of humor. In 2016, around Christmas time, a pair of ladies would stay in Miss Anna's room. And they decided to just leave their bags on the bed. They were going to unpack after they came back from dinner downstairs. However, when they returned to their room, they found that not only had their bags been unpacked, but a few intimate items were missing. In a panic, they began to tear that room apart and search for their missing undergarments. But we're going to put a pin in that because very soon we're going to see the 1790 to the left side of the trolley. Now we're going to count the windows and see if we can find Miss Anna, okay? But I need your help because I'm an art student. So there's 1, 2, what comes after that? 3, 4. Oh, there's Miss Anna. Everybody wave hello.
Where's she at?
Isn't she just a doll?
Where? Oh, snap. Hold on, girl.
TJ.
Yeah, I know that drink.
As I was saying, those 2 ladies, they tore their room apart and searched for their missing undergarments before heading downstairs and ate them.
even know.
And as they waited at that front desk, there was a flash of light in the corners of their eyes. And when they turned to the Christmas tree just down the hallway, they found to their utter shock and embarrassment, it was decorated from head to toe with their underwear. Talk about a white Christmas, huh? Now, a few years after that, we did have a young couple taking our tour who was also staying in Miss Anna's room. However, they were very skeptical of the paranormal, so they decided to turn off all the lights. That way no one would be able to see the doll when the trolley passed by. However, when the trolley passed by that hotel, all the lights had magically been turned on. A strange fog was also emanating from the room, and of course the silhouette of Miss Anna was staring down at them. So it's safe to say we made a couple of believers that evening. But if you do want to go and visit Miss Anna, know that she is not the only spirit that resides there. There's another entity that is anything but a prankster. She was a former cook at the establishment who practiced voodoo. She does not take kindly to any female waitstaff in her kitchen. You can hear her coming by the jingling of the bracelet she wore in life just before a spy struggles fly past someone's face or a waitress gets her ponytail tucked. But do not worry, not all spirits in Savannah are so uninviting. Some just happen to be unwelcome house guests themselves. As we turn into Oglethorpe Square, very soon we're going to see the yellow brick building with the green awning, and that is going to be 210 East State Street. It was built in 1924, and while a couple was staying there, they encountered an entity only known as the Earl Grey Ghost. As we make this turn, we're going to see 210 just to the right side of the trolley. It's this yellow brick building right here. Now this couple, they loved everything about their new home, but there was one thing that set them off. Every couple days, they would walk into the kitchen and find a used teacup sitting on their table. And neither of them liked tea, so they just assumed and honestly hoped one of their neighbors was playing a little prank on them. So they began to ask around, and no one fessed up, and that problem only persisted. So finally, at their wits' end, they were forced to call the past tenant of their apartment, a man named Rodney. That's when he explained he had been forced to move out of that building because his girlfriend refused to go anywhere near his apartment. Because one morning that girlfriend had gone downstairs when she found Rodney's mother, whom she had never met, sitting at the kitchen table sipping tea. They exchanged a few pleasantries before the girlfriend went upstairs to scold Rodney for not warning her that his mother was coming to visit. Reason that he explained, his mother had been dead for the past 2 years. Because shortly after moving in, Rodney's mother had gone to visit him when she unfortunately died of a stroke at the kitchen table, sipping her customary cup of Earl Grey tea, which she fell face first into. So obviously the couple was very horrified at learning this, and in the spirit of compromise, decided to leave Ronnie's mother a little note. And it went like this. They said, "Dear ma'am, Ronnie no longer lives here, but if you would like to visit him, here is his new address." Believe it or not, that note actually worked, and the couple never heard from Ronnie's mother again. But let's all take a moment to remember the true victim of this story, Ronnie's girlfriend, who could never escape her mother-in-law. Right, teacher? Very soon, we're going to be heading into Lafayette Square, where we're going to see a Savannah icon known as the Hamilton Turner Inn. This was built in 1873 for Mr. Samuel L. Hamilton. He was a former blockade runner during the war, and he was also known as the Lord of Lafayette Square. He was a very wealthy man who liked to throw lavish parties for the other rich citizens in Savannah. But during these parties, he did need someone to guard the home, so he had hired an off-duty police officer to guard the home at night. And he would do this by standing at the very top of the roof of the Hamilton Turner Inn with his rifle over his shoulder, and he would survey the property from there. It was a good system and one that worked very well until one morning when that sentry did not come downstairs for breakfast. The family just assumed he fell asleep on the job, so Mr. Hamilton did as any rich man would do, and he sent his butler upstairs to investigate. Now, Butler made his way up the narrow staircase. He opened up the hatch and stepped onto the roof. At first, he was unnerved by how uncharacteristically silent that square was, but it would not be quiet for long. As he turned to the right, he let out a scream to find the sentry lying lifelessly against the railing in a pool of his own blood. So as it turned out, during the night, that man had been shot in the back of the head, and the noise from that party was so loud it perfectly covered up the sound of that gunshot. And to this day, his murder remains unsolved. So it's no surprise that after all these years, he is still keeping his post. A few years ago, one of the neighbors was heading out to her car when she had sensed some movement in the square. And when she looked to the top of the Hamilton Turner Inn, she saw a man standing there with a rifle over his shoulder, perfectly silhouetted by the moon. And of course, she sat there staring at this sight until a strange fog had moved in front of him, and when it had moved away, that figure had vanished. Now, a playful presence does also reside at the Hamilton Turner Inn. Mr. Hamilton will often appear at the very top of the stairs dressed in all his finery. So if anybody's looking for a rich husband, that is a great place to start. Woo! This bachelor does come with 5 children, though, who like to cause trouble in the hotel just as they did in life. Now, they like to throw billiard balls down the stairs to disrupt the party, and you can still hear those billiard balls crashing down the stairs every now and then, but they do tend to mess with the guests as well. A few years ago, a couple of amateur ghost hunters were staying there, and we're going to put a, oh wait, never mind, I overjudged that. Anyways, a couple of ghost hunters were staying there when they decided to set up EVPs, or electronic voice phenomenon, while they slept. And it was the early hours of the morning when they woke up to the best alarm clock in the world, the sound of a jack-in-the-box being cranked. Alright, now we're going to see the Hamilton Turner in as we make this turn. It is going to be just to the right side of the trolley, right here. Now that jack-in-the-box only grew louder and louder till pop, and it was followed by a distinct male voice whispering, "Shh, it's almost morning." So that is a great place to stay if you enjoy a childlike presence. I'm scared of it, that's why we're going to drive away. Very soon we're heading towards our first stop of the evening, Colonial Park Cemetery. Now this was built in 1750, and it's one of the oldest existing cemeteries in Savannah. And I say existing because it was not our first. The first was actually just off of Wright Square, but when the plans came along to expand Colonial Park, we did not think twice about knocking a couple of tombstones over and making room for progress. Now, as we look in the fence, we're going to see a lot of historical figures buried there, such as Archibald Bullock and Button Gwinnett. But as we view their final resting places, please remember that we can only view it from outside the fence, and the reason for this will be explained shortly. But before we do stop, we have a couple of rules. I ask that you wait for the trolley to come to a full and complete stop, and for the lights to turn on. I'm going to hop on first, and the rest of you will follow. And feel free to leave your things on the trolley. TJ's going to stay behind. He will guard it with his life. And of course, please be sure to watch your step on the sidewalk right here. It is very historical, which is just a fancy word for uneven. So please do watch your step. That snow is not going to help either. And we are going to have a caretaker that will join us in just a few minutes. All right, are we ready to explore? Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
You ready, Mom? Bye, Tana. Oh.
Oh, we.
Can't take the drink with you. Oh, you can.
Right here, chat. I don't know what they got us at, chat. What they got us out here, man. Feel me? It's the bus we on. These are the people that was on the bus. Out here by the grave site. A lot worse. Bus gone.
Did you guys leave yourself?
Oh, chat, we out here, man.
Alright. Hello, folks. I should introduce myself. I'm Miss Lil Clavell, Lady of the Other Side. Tonight is my pleasure to be your spiritual guide through this part of the tour. And I'd like to welcome you all to Colonial Park Cemetery. We opened these doors in the year 1750, and we closed them for burial in the year 1853. This is the oldest existing cemetery here in the city of Savannah. Now notice, friends, I said oldest existing. This is not the oldest. The first actually used to exist in Wright Square. But in true Savannah fashion, we take the tombstones out of Wright Square, put them within these gates, did not bother to move any of those bodies. Reportedly, 12,000 souls are buried at Colonial Park Cemetery. Now y'all are probably thinking, Miss Laveau, how do y'all fit 12,000 people in this tiny cemetery? Well, the answer to that is I lie. See, Colonial Park Cemetery actually used to lie about a block and a half longer in each direction in which you now currently see it. That one, and that one. But in true Savannah fashion, folks, we see where this is going. They take the tombstones from where they lay, put them within these gates, did not bother to move any of those bodies. So as we're doing, yes, in fact you are.
We
You were
standing
driving
here.
over them while you were over there too.
So we driving and standing on bodies.
Yeah, who did this stepping on right now?
Stepping on bodies, man.
Let's go.
All these
Where you
bodies
coming, Carl?
on the ground. You're probably wondering, Miss LaBelle, why can't you just take me inside?
Yeah.
I'd love to. That's the answer to that one. But I can't. It's against the law. But it didn't used to be. You see, I have to take you guys 20 years ago today to tell you the story. Something very, very awful happened right in the middle of Colonial Park Cemetery. You see, back in the day, you used to be able to go inside Colonial Park whenever you wanted to. You didn't have a picnic in there at 2 a.m. if that's what you desired. And around 20 years ago today, that changed forever. Before I go any further, friends, it's important to note exactly where we are in our city. Behind you, that's the fire department. At the edge of our cemetery that way, you're going to find our police barracks. This is notably a very safe area of town. So, around 20 years ago today, a cemetery enthusiast and her dog were walking straight through the middle. This was not an unusual thing to do, even at night. A lot of our residents happen to live around this area. You could use the middle of it as a shortcut back in the day. So that's exactly what she's doing. Walking straight through the middle of it with her dog when she comes across something very, very strange. A goat. Killed in a rather vicious way.
Let's go see.
Its arms and legs bound, its mouth taped, its neck slit, and also it completely sliced open. Now, she turns away in disgust, and 5 feet away from her on a tombstone just like that, she finds its heart, neatly wrapped in tinfoil next to a broken coconut and a burnt out candle. Well, obviously this lady was terrified, but luckily, friends, the police are right over that way. So she went over there and told the police exactly what she saw. The police did a very thorough investigation, asking all the members of our friends' communities if they had anything to do with it. Our voodooists, our hoodooists, our folks who practice Santeria. But no one would confess to the crime. A voodooist even wanted to go on record to say, well, if that's voodoo, they ain't doing it right. So to this day, those crimes remain unsolved. Rumors spread around our city of maybe being a cruel prank done by some teenagers or something a little bit more sinister. A budding serial killer on the loose. I know whoever did it was bad to the bone. We are a city truly built upon its dead friend. Why would anyone try to raise it? They're gonna outnumber us. But either way, ever since those crimes happened in our city 20 years ago, every cemetery in city limits closes at 8 p.m. or sundown, whichever one happens to happen first that day. Now, with that, while we're talking numbers, let's talk the smallest. Catholics. Do I have any amongst me tonight? No Catholics. Oh, great. We're going to your section first. Right this way.
Oh my God. Happy birthday, Fat and Boost. Freezing this for birthday.
Follow the lamp, guys. I'll mark the puddle.
Freezing. Oh, snap. Should have some Timbs out here or something. wrong kind of shoe. Bro. We walking to Slap Ice game. So cold. I don't think that bus had no heat on it. Duke man about to kill himself.
Okay.
This is crazy.
I'm gonna stop here by the gate. You go and meet me on that side of the sidewalk where it's drier.
Alright.
And also so people can pass us by.
You been out here all day?
Well, since 5 o'clock, yeah.
Ooh. Oh my god.
It only gets colder.
I'm already know.
Yeah. Alright, friends. Welcome to the Catholic section. I actually got to show you where it is. You see the sidewalk? Yes. Well, it connects to right over there. So where you see that street lamp? In a big circle. And everything in that circle, that's the Catholic section. Notably the smallest part of our cemetery. Now y'all are probably thinking, Miss Love, why do y'all got a Catholic section in the first place? Well, you see, when this was built in the year 1750, we're still the 13th colony of the American experiment. Directly to the south, the Florida-Georgia line was controlled by Spain. Also in this time in history, the Pope just also happened to be from Spain. So people in the colonies, especially in Georgia, believed that if we ever had a fight with Florida, the Catholics would obviously take their side because they're alliance to the Pope. So we built them a little section right here. And they were forbidden to be buried anywhere else. Now, it should go without saying, friends, our Catholics were obviously not exempt from all the fires, disasters, and frankly chaos that would come through our city. And being so, the city of Savannah would run out of places to put our Catholics. Instead of expanding this Catholic section, they started to bury people right on top of each other.
Oh, that's crazy.
Now, friends, the problem with this, other than the obvious ethical one, is we're a coastal city that experiences a good amount of flooding every single year. And when that flooding does occur, bones are known to rise to the top. But what made this especially distressing, friends, is around the same time, the 18th and 19th century, Savannah also had a big problem with stray dogs. So it was not uncommon to walk by these very gates and see a stray dog running out of them with a human femur in its mouth.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's terrifying, friends. You want to know something else that's terrifying? Around 100 yards from where we're standing, all of this going on, you're going to find a children's playground in that direction. Why the Savannah would put it there of all places, I don't know. But it actually used to be an entirely different kind of ground. Savannah's first dueling grounds. You see, it was supposed to be convenient. Shoot your enemy, bury him right over here. Brings me to my next story about Bud Gwinnett, youngest signer of Declaration of Independence. Go on to outline Georgia's first constitution, and what he wanted to do in his career was become commander-in-chief of the Georgia militia. But unfortunately, in the election, he was overlooked in favor of a man that he absolutely hated, General Lachlan McIntosh. But this did not discourage Bud. He kept on climbing the ladder. In the very next election, he was in fact elected commander-in-chief of the Georgia militia. And the first thing that Bud decided to do when he got his big boy job was fight his enemy. So he decided to get a big group of men, a militia. They were going to go down to Spanish Florida to secure the border, because he wanted to do it before General Lachlan McIntosh. Bud Gwinnett was not prepared for this at all. He did not have the skill or the expertise. So when he got down to Spanish Florida, it was a disaster. He lost so many men. When he returned to our great state, our courts had no choice but to charge him with malfeasance. a crime akin to treason. And although he was forgiven by our great courts and by our people at large, there was still one guy who had a pretty big problem with him. General Lachlan McIntosh spoke out against him anytime he got the chance, even going so far to call the man a scoundrel. Yes, very dirty word back then. In spring of 1777, the men would decide maybe the world is just not wide enough for the both of us. So they meet on a grounds that's quite like the one at the edge of our cemetery, but not that one. In my research, I found it was actually one that was 15 miles west of our city, in a little town called Thunderbolt. Makes sense. Everything's legal in South Carolina. Now, regardless, these men will take their paces 12 feet apart, and they both get hit in this altercation. But only one was succumb to his injuries, dying 3 days later of a vicious infection that has spread to his brain called gangrene. Bud Gwinnett. Now that's an awful thing to have happened to someone, but here's the humor of life. For those 3 days that Bud Gwinnett did in fact survive, it is rumored in our city that he went around town telling anyone that would listen to him that I shot General Lachlan McIntosh, only to die 3 days later and be survived by him for 30 years. General Lachlan McIntosh would go on to serve our great city, country, and state till his death in 1806. Now here's the cherry on top, folks. No one quite knows where Bud Gwinnett's body is. We're 75% sure that he's somewhere in Colonial Park Cemetery, because there's writings from that time that say that he's in there. But historians have went in there multiple times to find his body, and they have been unsuccessful every single time. But being that we love this guy so much here in our city and that he's so important to our history, there's a monument in there commemorating his life. His monument currently lies in firing distance from the grave of the man who shot him. So even in death, they're still at war. Can y'all imagine having beef with someone for that long? I'm sure that we can all agree that dying of a vicious infection that spread to one's brain 3 days after you went around town telling everyone that you shot a guy, that's a pretty bad way to go. But I can assure you there are ways that are much worse. Back in Bud Gwinnett's day, the most common fear surrounding death for the common person is that one would be buried alive. You see, here in Savannah, we've got a long history with a disease called yellow fever. It came to our city every quarter of a century, claiming no less than 9% of our population every single time. And one of the most deadly symptoms of yellow fever is that your heart rate can get so low, the doctor's not having the proper equipment. And medicine at that time could very well mistake you for dead and bury you that way. And this happened to a lot of people. And we're so scared of this happening to ourselves or to our loved ones that we started burying people with ways to escape. Crowbars, axes. So if you find yourself alive, a tomb that you're not supposed to be alive in, all you have to do is hack yourself out with the axe that you were buried with. What's the issue with that, friends? Well, the presumed dirt that would be over your head would make all of those efforts in vain. So we had a smarter idea, more innovative. We called it safety coffins. And that's when you tie a piece of string or rope to your loved one's hand. And this piece of string or rope is attached to a bell at the other end. So if you find yourself alive, in a tomb that you are very much not supposed to be alive in, all you have to do is ring, ring, mom, come get me, right? The big problem with this, friends, we're a coastal city. So gravediggers would be out here all night, wasting their time, listening at the chorus of bells that would almost constantly ring, but they were charged to dig up every single one of those graves that had rang, because they were out here looking for dead ringers and people who needed to be saved by the bell, which is where those two expressions come from. But it's important to note to y'all friends that no one in American history has ever reportedly been saved by a safety coffin. If they have, they haven't reported it. But I think that there's one last way. That's probably the worst way to go on my war. It's also about another war hero, Nathaniel Greene. He served with such great honor and valor in the American Revolution that General George Washington would call him his right-hand man. Now, when the war was over, he came down here to our great city when he inherited a rice plantation from the Grand family. Y'all see, the Grand family, they were loyalists. They elected they were going to go back to England when the revolution started. So, Nathaniel Green, he gets down here, he inherits this beautiful plot of land. He's got one problem with the premises. Too many shady trees. Nathaniel Green says to someone, well, all these shady trees around here, the enslaved people who work here, they can find rest and comfort under these trees. And I don't want that. I don't want them finding rest or shade under these trees. So he orders someone to take down all the shady trees from that property. And it is done. Now this would be his own undoing, friends. For you see, only a couple weeks after he ordered that to be done, he would die on his very own property of heat stroke. Yeah, karma's only a witch if you are. And because he died so early and unexpectedly, he now one of these bad babies. A family crypt. So his body was effectively lost for over 150 years. It wasn't until the year 1900 when Rhode Island, his birthplace, would call us up and be like, hey Peaches, can we have our war hero back? We tell him, yeah, if you can find him, come down here. So we gave them a work release. They came down here. The people of Rhode Island, they're very smart. They looked in the right place, the Grand Family Vault. They found both him and his son. They wanted to take him back up to Rhode Island to build him a monument in his honor. But once they found this corpse, we weren't just gonna give it back. So we got into a little bit of an argument with Rhode Island. Finders, keepers, losers, weepers, before we decided, wait, this is silly. We're adults. We are a democracy, aren't we? So we decided we'll hold a vote. So we asked 23 of his surviving family members, where should he be? Here in Savannah, where he died, or up there in Rhode Island, where he was born. And 18 of those people voted that he should stay right here where he died. So here he is. Now here's the funny part of this story, friends. During a little tiff of Rhode Island, we stick both him and his son in a random bank vault in our city. Don't ask me why, I don't know. Misuse of corpses is kind of our thing. Now, you won't find Nathaniel Green's body in Colonial Park Cemetery where you probably think you would. You're gonna have to go to his monument, which currently lies in the banking district. So it's kind of like we never took him out. With that, we've got to start heading back to the bus stop.
All right.
You got all the flags of time. You got all the flags of time.
So, you want drinking? Yeah, drinking. Yeah, drinking. Huh? Oh.
Has a big top hat and a wool coat. He's the most spotted spirit on my tour. A lot of people take pictures of that bench and not see there. He actually used to work across the street at that white building when it used to be John Lynn's and Company. He was an accountant in life, but he was murdered right in front of that bench. Walking home one night, intending to make his friend a hot toddy, he'd fallen ill. Two men jumped from behind that bench and attacked him with his own walking cane. He was not found until the morning, when two school children came going into the cemetery, playing, and discovered his body. They went running into the police barracks, yelling, there's a body in the cemetery! Obviously, this caused confusion and a little bit of laughter. Check it later. Yeah, check it later.
I'm definitely in.
Give your phone to me.
But when the police actually picked Mr. Baker up, they would arrest him on the spot for public drunkenness. You see that hot toddy that he had been carrying from his friend? In the attack, when those two men jumped from behind the bench, it shattered all over his chest. It smelled like a dive bar. So, the police assumed that he was just in the cemetery being publicly drunk. So they took him up to the police barracks to rest it off, where he later died of a fractured skull. Now, Mr. Baker's death has been one that's been widely speculated since its happening. A lot of people claim that he was robbed because he was an accountant, but he had already finished packing up for the night. And in fact, he was found on when we did the investigation with money in his pocket, 76 cents. That's around $26 in his money back in the late 1800s. We don't really know why Mr. Baker died. He was a loved friend, a family member of this community. But a lot of people happen to see him to this day, just taking this stroll right here in Colonial Park.
Oh. Now we down here. Now we back. Oh, I'm gonna shower.
Headed to the dark and scary room.
Yeah. They got us entering a black room. Recorded for my safety.
She walking like Bridget.
Alright, everybody, welcome inside the Chamois. Now we got a lot of fun relics inside here, but one I want to point out specifically is right up here. Oh boy.
Oh snap.
And I want to take a guess as to what this is. You're right, this is a coffin. But this is a Victorian era one-size-fits-all coffin. Now it looks a little short, so if you were too tall for it, they would only do the most respectful thing and make it one size fits all. Yeah, they would start chopping off your ankles, maybe even your shins. If you were too wide for it, they would just break your shoulders and fold them behind you all the way until your pretty little face was sitting in that window right there. Now who wants to be my guinea pig? See how it works.
We take pictures. We take pictures of it.
Yeah, go ahead. All right. Now before we do that, I do have some more relics to show you. If y'all will follow me. Get through.
Oh, my bad.
Thank you so much. Now just behind this door right here, it does say keep out and stay out. So what does that make you want to do? Go in.
Go in.
Go in. Welcome in, everybody.
Ooh. He's trying to look crazy.
Go ahead, can I get some juice?
Go ahead, Tay. Straight. Let you just sit down. Son.
We left all the best seats open for y'all.
I wonder if this piano work.
Seats open, we got bedrooms right
Or it don't.
here. All right, now that everybody is seated, all right, we've had a cat breaking in here lately, and we needed one more thing to go around, right? So let me go get the cat real quick, and I will be right back.
Here they go with this. I already knew it too. I knew it too. Oh look, man, it's one right there. It's a dude over there.
Who are you people? The light! Don't go into the light. It's a false light. You are a deceiver.
That makes it brown.
Who are you people?
I think we
It was a rhetorical question anyway. First of all, thank y'all for coming out tonight to bother me while I'm trying to work. Secondly, I say this from the bottom of my heart, sorrowful looking group. But really, most of you look like you haven't worked a day in your lives. Huh? Not like that, man. That's Henry. Henry Willing. Long dead as he still goes stopping off to work all the time.
You sure that ain't Abraham?
Henry had one great true love of his life.
Yeah, I know.
Then he was married twice. All right, somebody got it. The rest of y'all can catch up later. His first love was on a boat in the river out there, fell off and drowned. His first wife died of yellow fever, the devil's disease. Second wife just up and died for no apparent reason whatsoever. They're all just dying to get away from Henry. What it most meant, Henry buried himself in his work, trudging night after night in odd hours to his shipyards just to keep the nightmares at bay. You see, during the war between the states, Henry shipyards churned out Confederate engines of war. Ironsides like the CSS Georgia. That's now been raised off the shores of Fort Jackson. After the war, Henry's sons stood shoulder to shoulder with their proud father at the shipyards, which by now dominated River Street. It was May 1866, I want to say. Alexander, Henry's eldest son, was walking to work that day when he spied some dockmen trying to load a heavy pallet onto a cargo ship with a rope jammed up in a block and tackle high on the crane. Alexander climbs that crane just to work the damaged pulley to load ships. In helpless horror below, Henry watches as Alexander tries to make his way to the safety of the boom, and just when he thought he made it, the load shifts again. Y'all think I was going to stand here and yank at y'all? Alexander plummets to the wharf below, shattering his skull, fracturing his bones. He lingers for 4 hours on his deathbed. And Savannahans hear the sound of footsteps in these warehouses and those cobblestone streets outside. They know to step aside. It's Henry on his way to work. Footsteps. That's all that remains of an industrious life. You know, when I first started talking about Henry, every night, never stops. Quiet out there! What? My mother's a saint. Those guys. Is Savannah drinking gin? Sounds like your vacation in Savannah, doesn't it? It's actually a sound of revolution. The sounds of the Sons of Liberty. It's through the antics of those patriots by hanging King George as a dummy. The redcoats shut the ports down here in Savannah, leaving all this cotton in the hulls of the ships to rot away. Soon boredom sets in. And after a hard day of downing the rum, a hazy plan forms in the mind of a drunken sailor. He and his buddies would protest the closure. They find an empty dockman's cart, put up a makeshift gallows. Then with the promise of wine, women, and song, they recruit a cabin boy to stand on the structure. Dress him up like a redcoat, put a noose around his neck, and then they find an old movie mask of King George, and they slam it over the boy's noggin. Well, now, it's time to take the show on the road. Because after all, this is a grand scheme concocted by drunken sailors. What could possibly go wrong? They take that contraption, start pushing it down the cobblestone streets, laughing, running, having a good old time. Cabin boy hanging on for dear life because he wasn't quite having a good old time. But by now, though, the rum has worked its magic, and the boys find it's time for another round. So he's swaggering McHenry's tavern, all proud of himself, but forgot something. The cabin boy. He struggles that paper mache mask, but it catches on the noose and he slips off the stool and he's slowly strangled. To death. You know, a dozen McHenry's papers passed the boy right by. None bothered to stop. Because after all, doesn't this look like any other political dummy? They say the ghost of the American Revolution still haunts Savannah. You hear their songs in the alleys off Factor's Walk. I'm pretty sure the devil ain't serving them a whole lot of rum. I knew I smelled rain. The storm's approaching. It's not good to be on a river a night like tonight. You know, strange things happen during these storms. I'm looking at several right now. But this old warehouse was still a lot worse than this. Y'all be safe here. At least in the storm, anyway. Let's ride this one out with one last tale, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you guys over there, that was not rhetorical. So, shall we? I was going to do it anyway. I just need a little support.
We paid for it.
Let me ask you. Have any of you ever slept the sleep of the dead?
Nah.
You did? Sure? Oh. Okay, light and quick. Down on his post. Anyway, it's a night like that tonight. You feel very relaxed. Can't move a muscle, can't even raise an arm. Next day, aren't you tired? Well, if this has happened to you, then you've been ridden by the hag. who just came in the window looking for you. Yeah, a boo hag. See, down around these parts, a boo hag's a special kind of witch. The Gullah folks say that she can take the shape of a cat with a mist coming down. Some say she sits on your chest. Others say she rides your back. Either way, the results are the same. You feel very calm. The next morning, you're exhausted, as if the life has been drained right out of you. And it has been, because the witch has sustained her own life by draining you of yours. Now, the story goes, there's a dotman by the name of Clay worked the area around. His work was suffering, though, due to lack of sleep. His wife had her own sleepless nights, so she knew Clay was haggard. She even knew the witch's name, Melinda Edmund. Clay just laughs off her ravings, his paranoia, and southern superstition, but he believes her anyway. His mind racing, Clay runs to Tin City, where he speaks to a conjure man. Gave Clay some strange advice. Lay a broom across your door. Tie a silver coin around your wife's ankle and sleep with the Holy Bible under your pillow. Clay, well, he ignores all the glasses. They probably want to keep the witch away. He wanted to catch her. He also starts to sleep with an axe hand. On a night like tonight, Clay hears a sound in his room, a whisper almost like a breeze. Hears his wife moan, but she doesn't stir. Clay leaps out of bed and swings at his hand. He walks around the book and looking for the creature. Can't find it anywhere. But there it is on the other side of the room. Clay chases with that axe handle. That cat runs away. Jumps out the window. Clay follows in and driving. And there in the shadow was Melinda Edmund. Clutched her ribs, said, "Don't hit me no more, don't hurt me no more. I'll be good, I'll leave you alone." He's there and Clay noticed. Melinda was wearing nothing but what God had graced her with on the day of her birth. That's right, y'all. She was naked. And she was. Anyway, Melinda left town. And after that, we all got a good night's sleep again. That storm sounds like it's just about gone. That's what y'all should be. Gone. I have work to do. Huh? No, leave it open. That's all I get for reading. Anyway, you threw up on top of the piano back there. Yeah, you threw up there talking to you. You started looking a little creepy up there. Yeah, I know I should tell him. Folks, we were visited here tonight enchanted by three little strangers. They're the ghosts of unnamed children who died here long ago.
You talking about, girl?
Y'all can't see them, but they can see you. I guess that just makes it easier for them to follow you home.
Alright.
Oh my goodness, you look like you've seen a ghost.
Mr. Brown, go.
Now, I was going to tell you more about this building, but we are running out of time. If y'all will follow me to our...
Mr. Brown is.
Shit.